Nancy Pelosi's worst nightmare is coming true. The House finally standing up to her legacy of backroom deals, runaway spending, and open borders chaos. Today, Steve Scalise doesn't just call her out. He exposes the failures the Democrats have tried to bury for years, and lays out why this big, beautiful bill might be the last chance to stop America's decline. If you're sick of Pelosi's old-school strong-arming and want real solutions for immigration, jobs, and our economy, this is the video you can't miss.
I asked to speak because I hear members on the other side talking about spending on the part of the Democrats, spending for education and health care, and all the needs of food for our children. I just want to remind all of them, speaking to you, Mr. Speaker, that tax cuts are expenditures. They're the biggest spending in this bill, to the tune of $5 trillion. $5 trillion added to the national debt to give tax cuts to the wealthiest people in the country at the expense of feeding our children, health care for our people, and the education of our children. And nothing brings more money to the Treasury than the education of the American people, from early childhood to lifetime learning and every phase of it in between. So you should be ashamed of yourselves to mock spending on education. The best dollar we spend is on educating the American people and the investments in scientific research, the biblical power to cure that science provides for us, cut in this bill, to spend $5 trillion for the wealthiest people in America. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey everyone, welcome to Polit. My name is Brian. Today, Steve Scalise delivers a scathing speech not only criticizing Nancy Pelosi but also defending what we're aiming to accomplish with a big, beautiful bill. Let's dive in.
There's going to be no hiding, Mr. Speaker. We all know when this board lights up what the consequences are. And why do we say there's going to be a golden era in this country? We're securing our border in this bill, too. We're opening up American energy in this bill. Everywhere from the North Slope of Alaska to, yes, the Gulf of America, where President Biden had shut down American energy. He green-lighted Russia's Nord Stream pipeline so Russia could produce their energy, funding billions of dollars to go fund their war against Ukraine. But in America, we were shut down. We open it up in this bill, Mr. Speaker. American workers get to produce American energy, not just for America. It's going to lower the price at the pump. Again, you're a middle-income family. The billionaire doesn't care what the cost of gasoline is. You know who does? That waitress making $32,000 a year saves that tip money. Maybe she can go on a trip and get in her car and drive and afford the gasoline now because we'll be producing more. We actually have lease sales in this bill for once, so we can produce energy in America. We have great natural resources. We just had them shut down for 4 years by an administration that said no to American energy, said yes to other countries' energy. Iran was able to sell their oil on world markets thanks to the previous administration. That party's over. And when America starts producing more energy, not only does it help lower the price for families here in America, not only does it create great jobs here in America, but all the bad guys around the world, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, you name your country, they're not going to have a cartel-like exclusive license on global energy anymore because America's going to be back in the game. Let's get this country back in the game. Let's get this country back on track. Let's actually promote opportunity in the American dream again for anybody who wants it. You want to work? There's going to be more opportunity than you've ever had before. If you're disabled on Medicaid right now, you've been crowded out of those programs by people turning down work. Able-bodied people, 35-year-olds sitting at home playing video games. They're going to now have to go get a job. That's right. And by the way, that's a good thing for them. Their mom doesn't want them sitting in the basement playing video games anyway. But now it no longer will be crowding out Medicaid for the truly needy people who deserve it. The disabled people will not be getting crowded out of those programs by people who can actually go get a job, and there are going to be a lot of great jobs, Mr. Speaker, a lot of great jobs in this country. America's coming back. You can vote no all day long and you can hide behind billionaires all day long, but we're going to keep moving forward because this country doesn't sit down in the fetal position. America's ready for a rebirth and we're going to deliver it. President Trump is at the helm now. It's a new day. World leaders know it. The bad guys know it around the world. But you know what? Those hardworking families who have been waiting for this relief for a long, long time are finally going to realize help is on the way because Republicans in Congress, any Democrats that want to join, Mr. Speaker, are free to, but they're bragging that they don't want to be a part of this. But you know what? The hardworking families of America are hungry for this kind of change. Take power away from Washington, give it back to the people, and watch what happens. Great things are ahead for this country. Greatest country in the history of the world. We are finally going to give and restore that great American dream and that hope for those families who have been waiting way too long. That help is coming. We're going to pass this bill. President Trump's going to sign it. It's going to be a great 4th of July. Let's pass the bill, Mr. Speaker. I yield back to balance my time.
She's jealous, ladies and gentlemen. She doesn't like that the world is changing around her and she can't compete anymore. She used to be one of the most powerful members in congressional history, perhaps even in the top 5, and I mean that historically, not in terms of having actually done good work. She was a top 5 Speaker of the House because of how effectively she could strong-arm moderate Democrats into selling out American healthcare for the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. That's her legacy. And she can't stand the idea of Congress finally addressing all the problems that Democrats have allowed to build up and flood this country with illegal immigration. Immigrants continue to flood the country with money we didn't need. Remember, it was the Democrat Party under Joe Biden that pushed us over the debt ceiling, and I'm not talking about the one Congress routinely votes to raise again and again. I mean the point where economists were warning, don't pass a major spending bill right now. The American economy will plummet because of it, we'll face higher interest rates, we'll tumble into more inflation. And guess what? We got more inflation, Biden inflation, if you will. That's ultimately what Nancy Pelosi's legacy should look like. But let's also talk about her failure to be proactive. We asked her to beef up security on that cold day in January, and she refused. It is the job of the Speaker of the House to defend her members and to protect the Capitol building, and she refused. That's the complete 180 I've come to see. Nancy Pelosi might need to be studied for historical purposes, because, I'll admit, when I was in college studying political science, she was one of my favorite politicians. I respected her abilities. But back then, my brain hadn't fully developed. I mean, the male brain doesn't fully mature until around 25. And once I hit that point, I realized, wow, this woman is actually terrible. Now, I always knew guys like Harry Reid were some of the more ruthless and arguably evil figures in Senate history, but I never put Nancy Pelosi in that category, and I still don't. What I can say, though, is that she's clearly overcome with jealousy and envy. She cannot stand the idea that the Trump administration, now in its 2.0 version, is successfully pushing a major piece of legislation in its first year, something she couldn't even accomplish back in 2009, despite the Democrats having a trifecta of power at the time. I'm 99% sure they had full control, and yet she still failed to deliver. She loves to strong-arm her own people into voting for these bills, and now she's out here complaining about the idea that education is the best money we can spend. No, it's actually been one of the biggest drains on the American economy and on taxpayers. Why? Because Nancy Pelosi and her socialist-style friends, her Marxist buddies, have captured almost every single institution. There are only a handful they haven't gotten their grubby mitts into. Hillsdale College is one of the biggest exceptions, in my opinion. Honestly, I kind of wish I'd gone there instead of the college I chose. I probably would have gotten a much better education. But Pelosi and her cronies in education have continued to erode the very idea, the heartbeat, of the American people with their ridiculous policies. And let's not forget, by the way, No Child Left Behind. Remember that bill? That terrible piece of legislation that gave lawmakers an excuse to defund certain areas simply because they didn't like the rural test scores? It was essentially a way to prevent some members of Congress from securing funding for their districts to improve infrastructure. And the truth is, infrastructure is the real backbone of America when it comes to taxpayer dollars. It's our roads, our highways, it's how we move and operate as a nation. And let's be honest, our highway system needs serious attention. In fact, in some places, maybe it's had too much attention. I come from one of those fortunate states that doesn't suffer through harsh winters that wreck the roads, but not everyone's so lucky. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi continues to bloat with envy, seemingly beyond her own comprehension, because she can't stand that things are changing and moving without her. At the same time, Steve Scalise is trying to rally his party and remind them that we have a real opportunity to fix long-standing issues in this country, especially illegal immigration, which, if addressed properly, could help restore jobs and raise the standard of living for American citizens. Increasing labor will raise the dollar's value and the number of available jobs. In fact, we just had a great jobs report this month. While expectations were around 33,000 new jobs, we actually saw 147,000 created. Steve Scalise is talking about an American comeback because we truly need a real re-emergence. We had a brief one when Donald Trump worked with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan to pass the tax cuts that helped lift our economy out of the malaise of the Obama years. That's exactly what this big, beautiful bill is trying to do now. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party just wants to stick their fingers in their ears and ignore the problems they've allowed to build up inside the country. The United States has let this problem fester and grow until we can't ignore it anymore. We're nearly at a critical mass, and we're going to need mass deportations to some degree. We have to address this illegal immigration problem, which is one of the cornerstones of the big, beautiful bill. And to those yelling about losing education dollars or charity money, Americans are the most charitable people on the planet. Remember, we're a nation that left the old world to found something new, with a deeper instinct to help our own neighbors. We need to rediscover that. Nancy Pelosi is terrified of what will happen if we defund certain places, but I'm more excited to see what happens when Americans start reaching into their own pockets and giving voluntarily instead of through tax dollars. That's why we've defunded USAID. But I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Nancy Pelosi is over the target, or is Steve Scalise 100% right? Let me know, folks. My name is Brian. Thanks for watching this segment here on Polit. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, you'll have a good one.